So you want to invade Australia? Wonderful. Your staff is genuinely excited about this one. An entire continent stuffed with iron, gold, gas, and uranium, defended by about 60,000 full-time soldiers and fewer than 100 tanks. A coastline of more than 20,000 miles that no army that size could ever hope to watch. And unlike our previous two defendants, there are no Alps here and no minefield of history books. On paper, this is not an invasion. It is a real estate acquisition. And yet, the last professionals who seriously priced this job were 400 miles offshore, undefeated, commanding the finest carrier fleet on Earth. And they looked at the numbers and turned the contract down. By the end of this audit, you will understand why, and I will read you the itemized bill. Stay for the final line item, because it is not waiting for you out at sea. It is already stationed inside the first city you plan to bomb. Let us begin with your staff briefing, because it is not wrong, it is just fatally incomplete. Australia's permanent defense force is around 60,000 people. That is not 60,000 for the beach you land on. That is 60,000 for a landmass the size of the continental United States. The north, the part closest to Asia, the obvious doorstep, is nearly empty. Darwin, the largest city in the entire northern third of the continent, has about 150,000 residents, the population of a modest suburb. You could land a corps in the north tomorrow, and in the words your planners will actually use, be unopposed. Hold that word, unopposed. Because in Australia, unopposed does not mean you have won. It means the continent has accepted your application, and the interview is about to begin. Start where every invasion of Australia starts, and most of them end. The water. An Australian historian named Geoffrey Blaney wrote that his country's entire story is shaped by one force he called the tyranny of distance. And your fleet is about to be its next chapter. From mainland East Asia to the parts of Australia that actually matter, the populated southeast, your convoys sail 3,000 to 5,000 miles of open ocean. Even from the closest useful staging ground, the islands to the northwest, it is about 400 miles of sea before the first boot touches sand. For calibration, consult the largest amphibious invasion ever attempted. On D-Day, the Allies crossed barely 100 miles of the English Channel. It took around 7,000 vessels, 156,000 men on the first day, 2 full years of planning, and total command of the air and the sea. And it still very nearly failed on one of the 5 beaches. Now stretch that operation to 10 times the distance at minimum, against a coastline watched by radar that bends over the horizon, and ask which navy on Earth owns the shipping. The answer is none. The greatest amphibious fleets in existence today are built around crossing 100 miles of strait, not 3,000 miles of ocean. Your invasion dies in the spreadsheet before it dies on the beach. But let us be generous. Let us say you build the fleet of the century and get ashore. Now comes the part the map has been waiting for. Because here is Australia's oldest trick. The country keeps its emptiness by the front door and its life by the back. Nearly 9 out of 10 Australians live within about 30 miles of the sea, and overwhelmingly in the far southeast and southwest, in a handful of cities: Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Adelaide, Perth. Between your northern beachhead and those cities lies the reason this continent has never been conquered by force. About 70% of Australia is desert or near desert, not romantic desert. Logistical desert. 2,000 miles of red rock, salt pans, and spinifex, where the daytime heat kills the careless, the distances kill the vehicles, and there is no water. Understand what no water means for an army. Planners budget multiple gallons per soldier per day before anyone washes, cooks, treats a wound, or tops up a radiator. Every drop of that, for every man, for 2,000 miles, arrives on your trucks, or it does not arrive at all. And those trucks are driving on what exactly? In the entire center of the continent, there is essentially one paved artery, the Stuart Highway, running from Darwin toward Adelaide, and one railway line beside it, a single track completed only in 2004. One road, one track, 2,000 miles. If our Finnish case taught you what a single forest road does to a division, imagine that road stretched across a desert 8 times longer, where every culvert and bridge can be dropped by a handful of reservists with a pickup truck, and where the nearest replacement water is a week behind you. You will not maneuver across Australia. You will queue across it, and the queue is the target. And the continent has moods. From November to April, the monsoon arrives in the north, and the invasion window slams shut. Rivers that were dry sand become brown torrents miles wide. The floodplains drown the roads, and airfields become lakes. In the same season, cyclones spin off the Timor Sea, storms the size of countries. In 1974, one of them, Cyclone Tracy, hit Darwin on Christmas Eve and flattened most of the city in a single night. If you have reviewed our case file on mud, ice, and dust, add wind and flood to the ledger, because here the weather works both shifts. Even the wildlife file's a brief. The rivers of your landing zone are patrolled by saltwater crocodiles, the largest reptiles on Earth, which, unlike the defenders, have signed no conventions of any kind. And yes, for the record, this is the continent whose army once deployed machine guns against flightless birds in 1932, and by the Army's own account, the birds won. The emus are still there. Draw whatever conclusion about the terrain you like. Now to the defenders you can see, because small does not mean blind, and it does not mean short-armed. Across the northern interior, Australia operates an over-the-horizon radar network called Jindalee that watches the air and sea approaches out to nearly 2,000 miles. Translation: your fleet is on a screen in Canberra days before it can shoot at anything, and every hour of those days, it is a slow, fat, irreplaceable target. Waiting for it are 72 F-35 stealth fighters, a fleet of P-8 ocean hunters whose entire profession is finding and sinking ships, submarines that are being replaced by nuclear-powered boats under the AUKUS Pact, and a ground force that has spent the last few years rearming specifically for this scenario, with long-range rockets and ship-killing missiles, because Australia's planners read the same map you do. Their conclusion was simple. You do not defend a continent at the beach. You defend it 1,000 miles out to sea by turning the crossing itself into the killing ground. But you do not have to take my word for any of this, because the audit has already been performed by the most qualified firm in history. The date is February 1942, and Imperial Japan is at the absolute peak of its power. Singapore, the fortress we watched fall to bicycles in another case file, surrendered on February 15. 4 days later, the same carrier force that struck Pearl Harbor appeared off northern Australia and hit Darwin with 242 aircraft. By most accounts, more bombs fell on Darwin that morning than fell on Pearl Harbor, and more than 230 people died. Before the campaign was over, Darwin alone would be bombed more than 60 times, and northern Australia would absorb around 100 raids. The door was open. The Japanese were 400 miles away, undefeated, with the best naval aviation on the planet. And inside the Japanese High Command, staff officers of the Navy proposed exactly your plan. Seize northern Australia. Take the continent off the board before America could use it. The Army General Staff ran the numbers, and the numbers ended the conversation. Their price, as commonly recorded, came to 10 to 12 divisions, troops that would have to be ripped out of China, and roughly a third of Japan's entire merchant shipping tonnage the Empire could not spare without starving every other front it had. The Army called the whole idea beyond Japan's capability. Prime Minister Tojo agreed, and the invasion of Australia was rejected in the only war council that ever seriously considered it. At maximum feasibility, at 1/10 of your distance, with the defenses of 1942 rather than today, the professionals declined. Your plan is that plan, with every number worse. What Japan chose instead is the honest part of this audit, and your analysts should pay attention, because it remains the only strategy against Australia that has ever made sense. Do not invade the fortress. Starve it. Japan's alternative, Operation FS, aimed to cut the sea lanes between Australia and America by taking Port Moresby, Fiji, and New Caledonia, strangling the continent into irrelevance. That strategy died in May 1942 at the Coral Sea, the battle that turned back the Moresby invasion fleet and drowned for good a month later at Midway. The land route over the mountains of New Guinea died in the mud of the Kokoda Track. And then the whole logic reversed. The continent Japan could not take became the springboard from which the counterattack came, the base for the entire Southwest Pacific War. Even Australia's own wartime politics tell you what the map says. A scandal erupted over an alleged plan to abandon everything north of Brisbane if invasion came. No such official plan existed, but notice that an entire country found it instantly believable. The defenders themselves assumed the North was not the prize. The North was the trap, and the continent would absorb the blow. Your modern analysts will rediscover the blockade option, and they will even find Australia's one genuine soft spot, because Canberra's own strategists publish it. Australia imports most of its refined fuel and keeps thin stockpiles. But look at what the strangulation strategy runs into now. Nuclear-powered submarines, the United States Navy, and the small matter that a blockade of Australia is an act of war against everyone whose trade dies with it. The one strategy that ever made sense is also spoken for. So let us read your bill. Line 1, the fleet. An amphibious armada without precedent in human history, multiples of D-Day, sailing 10 to 50 times D-Day's distance, under satellite and over-the-horizon radar surveillance the entire way, against aircraft and submarines built for exactly this shooting gallery. Line 2, the beachhead. Congratulations, you own the emptiest real estate on Earth, and everything of value is 2,000 miles of desert away, down one road and one railway you cannot protect. Line 3, the water bill, literally. Every gallon for every soldier, trucked through country that has none, forever. Line 4, the calendar. Monsoon, flood, and cyclones in the north. Heat that kills in the center, and a weather system that has already erased your main port city once. Line 5, the occupation. 20 to 25 soldiers per 1,000 inhabitants across 27 million people is roughly 600,000 occupation troops, holding cities on the far side of the continent from your beachhead indefinitely. Line 6, the prize itself. Australia's wealth is not gold in a vault. It is bulk rock and gas, which only become money when enormous ships carry them across peaceful oceans. The act of invasion closes the sea lanes that give the prize its value, and the mines sit in the loneliest corners of the continent. Trivial to sabotage, impossible to garrison. You are buying a bank whose vault empties itself the moment you break the glass. And now the final line item, the one I promised. Australia looks alone on your map. It is the loneliest continent, and it has not fought alone in over a century. Australians have gone to war beside Americans in every major conflict for more than 100 years. The alliance is written into treaty, and it is not an abstraction across an ocean. Around 2,500 United States Marines rotate through Darwin. American bombers stage through the airfields of the North. And near Alice Springs, in the exact dead center of the continent, your army would need to cross, sits Pine Gap, one of the most important American intelligence facilities on Earth. Your unopposed landing in the empty North opens fire on day 1, on positions with Americans inside them. You planned a quiet colonial war at the bottom of the world. You scheduled a world war by lunchtime. The verdict of this court: invasion of Australia denied. Not because the defenders are many, Because the defense was never the army. It is 5,000 miles of ocean, 2,000 miles of desert, one road, no water, a radar horizon that bends, a prize that cancels itself, and an ally already standing on the property. Imperial Japan, 400 miles out with the finest fleet afloat, read this exact file in 1942 and wrote one word on it: beyond capability. Nothing since has gotten cheaper. Case number 3, closed. And now your staff goes quiet, because the next file on your desk is the one nobody wants to present. A country with more guns in civilian hands than it has civilians. A moat on each side wider than the one that just defeated you. An industrial base that once built a warship in under a week. The largest air force on Earth, and this is true, the second largest air force on Earth, which belongs to its navy. Every other nation on this planet combined could not hold its parking lots. That case file opens next. If you want your invasion plans rejected properly, hit subscribe, because the Iron Verdict Court is now in session.